We go
How
for
are you?
musical intro. I'm good.
Are we on, Matt?
We're live. We are live. We're communicating to the world.
Whining on! Whining on! Where are we? Hey! We're on! Whining on! Trash! Whining on. This is a musical intro. We don't need no show. No, this conversation. Fucking, why are you doing this, Paul? What? Say.
That was beautiful. So, Paul, it's nice to have you here. Wow.
Okay, got that out of the way. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Can I ask you? Thank you, first of all, for the musical intro. It was much appreciated. Can you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm the most successful, unsuccessful artist from the street. Well, right now I'm in Evanston, which is 30 minutes north of Chicago. And I'm here because some artists called Duo Rose offered their apartment for free because I was stuck in America because of the corona. I had a 6-month gig in Chicago, Teatro Cinzani. And so basically I'm actually in a lovely little apartment, 4 walls. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And that's kind of where I've been at for the last 10 years. Just sort of, I've kind of come full circle. But I don't know, what's the bloody, I never know, there's the camera. See, you can either be dishonest and look into the camera like you're talking to people, or you can be like that, or you can be egotistical and look at yourself. But I'm going to go like that. Is that all right? Is that better?
Yeah, you do whatever makes you feel comfortable.
I get, it's actually trying to be realistic about this thing, but it's actually not totally realistic. So let's just try to put the reality in, but that's what we do, isn't it? Yeah. And I hate bloody cameras because then it makes you into a performer, and what we really want to do is go a little bit deep inside and tell our story, right? But
yeah, the thing behind the performer, the human being.
Yeah,
I don't know how you feel. Just before we go on to your life story and stuff, do you see your character as a character, or do you see it as part of yourself, or both?
That's a really good question. No, I think why I like the street was that I felt with the street, and I'm still there, by the way, mostly, is that you could blur the line between reality and character. So in a way, because, you couldn't just put a costume on, lights, sound, do your sound check, and then bam, walk on the stage, people clap, they're happy you're there, and then, you're into the performance. With the street, you have to hang around, you've got no technical support, you have to create the crowd, you have to be in the zone, and then it becomes more like it's more like what Jonathan Livingspace did, which I think he was one of the amazing street artists. Is that you literally create that outside like it's inside, and so you create your own comfort zone, and you're being more real within that outside space, but you're actually being yourself. So to answer your question. I think I've always wanted. I think that it's not just a character. It's me. But like all of us, we project it or we exaggerate it. We learn some tricks,
So you see it as you, but it's you, but a hyper version. It's sort of to a heightened degree.
Yeah. I mean, mainly I was just scared, like most performers. I guess or me particularly. I was just so scared. You're just scared to expose yourself like that in front of strangers and people, and also if you're going to be good or not. The beginning was really hard, like probably like most performers. Hey,
can you tell us about the beginning, how you started?
Yeah, well, going back to Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Just 1 second before you do that. Can I ask you a favor? Can I get you to put the camera down, just because I'm getting motion sickness?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, no worries. Oh, wow. I didn't mean put it that down. Okay, so we lost Paul for now. I'm going to try and get Paul back on. If people don't know, I'm sure he's going to tell you this himself in a second. Paul was part of a trio act that went around and toured all the festivals. Very, very successful performer. He was the clown act, sort of the centerpiece for the act. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to multitask and try and get Paul on at the same time. I do apologise. So, first of all, while we're just stopping, I'd like to thank everyone who's supported it so far. Thank you, everybody. I've been myself personally pretty good, ups and downs. I don't know if anyone else has the same feeling, that quiet feeling of screaming, going mad, very, very, very silently in the back of your head occasionally. But I have managed to, because of this, as well as thank God, I was telling my life story. It's all good. Okay, so you're back in the room.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, the beginning was in Virginia. I was like trying to be I got the juggling bug. I learned to juggle in a restaurant. I was 13 or 14. I learned to juggle lemons. There was a friend of mine taught me how to juggle lemons. I got really obsessed, and I was working as a dishwasher and in Steinhilber's, an old seafood restaurant. And then, I used to I just couldn't stop juggling. And like my friends were musicians, and I was trying to be in the band, but to be honest with you, I wasn't really good enough. So the juggling became my thing. And I just remember being like in the back in the restaurant. There was the black chefs. There was Lulu, and there was Brown, and they would just be like, "Paul, stop juggling, man!" And I would be juggling the lemons, and I would drop it in the soups, and it was they were not like really really happy with me. And then I used to take my lemons for a walk, or as well as playing the harmonica. I used to walk to work, and I mean, not just talking about the performing, but it's more interesting for me as well as like why we perform, why we went into that, because that's these days, because I've come back to America, I got stuck here actually. I was in Virginia Beach, and I was kind of like having a relook at my childhood and trying to figure shit out. Being almost 60 now, 59, and I went back and I just thought, wow, that place is so transactional. It's actually a transient place with lots of military, and it's very economic driven. Not to mention it's Trump land. And people I love, my brother, my friends, they're all Trump things. So I didn't go into the politics thing. If I had to stand up for some things, I did, but I just okay, not going to go there. But what I realized was it was a place, very non-expressive, non-emotional, very efficient, practical, and I definitely didn't fit in there. I felt like a fish out of water. Which there is a lot of water there. There's a lot of ocean. There's like water all over the place. So I'm definitely a water freak. I'm a fish. And there's great nature. And that part stayed. But that along with my mom being a Moroccan Jewish, French Moroccan Jewish, very confusing. Speaking 4 languages every day on the telephone. She was quite an interesting character. She's sort of like bipolar, manic depressive, foreign, and they got divorced when I was 6. Is this a therapy chat? Sorry, man. I'll get to your point. Well, I want to set this up, and sorry if it's not soundbite, but basically between Virginia being this military, efficient, practical thing, which I wasn't, and then my crazy foreign mom, who would be a great study if you were an actress. She could just go from tears to laughter, to anger, to paranoia, big heart, big laugh, lots of tears. And as a child, that was just like full on, and I was trying to make sense of it. My dad and her were divorced when I was 6, and my brothers were all older than me. like 5, 6, 7 years older. There was Jimmy, Johnny, Jerry, and then I was called Paul. And I was the darkest one in the family. So it was a struggle for me to I guess I kind of grew up like an only child. And then I found out when I was with my brother how much he used to beat me up and how I was always needing attention. And I think I was also the only brown kid in my white neighborhood, which, all my friends are like, it's cool, but I had a kind of a chip on my shoulder about that too. So I think performing, like learning something, was like a passport to get out of there, to get out of this this feeling of being inferior, this feeling of not being valued, not valuing myself. And it's funny, but I remember when I was juggling in my house, this very square bungalow-looking, boring military house, and I would have these plastic fruits because my mom used to always have this basket of plastic fruits. I just learned to juggle lemons, so I would be practicing in the living room. And I remember as I was juggling, I had all kinds of visions, like, oh wow, I can do this, And it was like I was empowered, I was like dreaming. And then I would like drop a plastic fruit on the floor, on a carpeted floor, and then she would hear that. She'd go, Paul, I'm trying to sleep. It was like, I remember just cringing, it was this battle to sort of be a juggler performer. Hey?
It was a high pressure environment.
Yeah, I mean, just giving a little example. I just thought it was funny because of the plastic fruits, but yeah. I mean, nobody would really like look at you. This is a classic story. People would think you're a loser, right? If you're, artists are misfits, basically. And it's
not all of them, but we are painted to be such.
Eh?
We're not all of them, but we are painted to be such, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, misfit is a positive thing for me because it's like, what are you trying to fit into? Yeah. Do we think that society has got everything right? I mean, look at what's going on. Do we think that this is the right way to live? We're relying on information, technological. We've stopped being with people. I'm not talking about Corona. I'm talking even pre-Corona, and this whole the way that mass production of food we've just lost some of the basic organic ways of living. So to me, in this case, it was not like being a misfit. It was more like being enlightened.
Yeah, sort of allegory of the cave kind of thing. Allegory of the cave being a quote from Plato's Republic, where two guys are tied in a cave, staring at the shadows on a wall, the shadows their entire life. One day, one of the guys breaks free, looks out of the cave and sees a whole world. When he sees the world, he rushes back inside. He then grabs his friend and tells him, look, there's a whole world out there, I can free you. And his friend turns to him and asks him to release him and says that if he was free, the man would have killed him in anger for challenging his worldview, for all the things he knew. And so the man has to go to the cave alone. And so what the story is saying is it's saying that if you're an artist, not just an artist, but if you see things that are wrong in society, if you've seen outside of the cave, past the shadows and the cave wall, then it's a lonely road. You're a misfit. You're someone who isn't, doesn't lock into society necessarily. Yeah.
Until you become this commercial success, and then people, oh wow, I think like in America and other places too, it's like if you become a success, then people start listening to you. Let's say if you become an Eddie Izzard, like for example, who was a street performer. Even Robin Williams was a street performer. Michael Davis from America, a comedy juggler, was a street performer. It's like then all of a sudden what you have to say has value, because you're obviously successful and you also
celebrated.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know why that is. It's always this like the person that is really changing the rules. Let's say in anything, it's always this rebel at first, and then eventually the new form becomes the accepted new mainstream form. But to get there, you have to really upset the apple cart. You have to provoke. I want to get back to your question though about how did I get into juggling or performing? Sorry, So I took you back to my own personal thing with the house, because in my house, in my town and stuff. So it was a real, how do you become a performer in Virginia? Either you're going to be in a band and everybody knows you're just going to live on the edge. You're going to be not very employable. And you want the dream. And most people want the dream, but they want the economic comfort as well, right? They're not willing to give up things. And I remember it was almost subconscious, but I started failing at everything, either on purpose, subconsciously, or and so I was working as a waiter at Jewish Mother, and I used to juggle for the customers. I got fired. I worked in a supermarket. I was a bag boy. I juggled the things, and eventually I got fired. And I just started to realize that I can't do normal jobs very well. And I was going to university, studying business and languages, couldn't finish that. And then I hit the road. I went to New Orleans with a guy called Tim Nolan from North Carolina. Real nice guy. And he had a bachelor's degree in sports, and we had a little act. And this was my big eye opener. I went down to New Orleans, and basically before that I had worked at Sesame Place in Pennsylvania, Langhorne, which was I auditioned at Busch Gardens in Virginia, Williamsburg, and they gave me this job in Pennsylvania. So I was basically going around juggling for cues, and I didn't really have an act as such. If people were in a line, I would juggle for them and have a few little jokes, and I could juggle 7 at that time. So I could do 7 beanbags, right? That was pretty impressive, but I would go very quick from juggling 1, 3, maybe I had a tennis racket or something else, and I would go through my whole act in a short time, and I was relying on the technical stuff. And then while I was there, I went down to Philadelphia. This is before New Orleans. I went down to Philadelphia, and they told me, you got to go down there. There's some performers and stuff there. And I went with a magician friend who was also working at Sesame Place. And I saw these 2 guys, and they were on the cobblestone in Philadelphia. And one of the guys had pins holding up his pants and stuff, and the other guy and they just had this very funny duo act. Frying pan, egg, chicken, talking, patter, and there's a crowd about 200-300, and I just felt it was so magical. It was theatrical. It was compelling. They didn't have very much juggling technique, but they were absolutely on the presentation, connecting with the audience. And then afterwards, I saw at the end, all these people come out and put dollars and dollars and dollars and $5 and $10 and $20 in their hat. And I was like, whoa. And, I remember and I didn't do this for the money, of course. I mean, it was more the magic. But I also noted that me working for a week, getting I don't know, $15, $20 an hour, $175 for the week, burning hot, 40 hours the whole week. And I watched them make maybe triple that in 25 minutes. But it was more okay, performance. It was a big lesson. So anyway, now fast forward, I went to New Orleans. Am I talking too long, Matt?
No, it's fine.
Okay, sorry, man. I'll get this out, and then I'll make it more of a conversation. Sorry.
No, it doesn't have to be a conversation. I want to listen to your story. Please tell it.
I want to ping pong more. Sorry, man. This stuff is deeply personal, as you know. That's why you probably wanted to do this. So fast forward to New Orleans. Me and Tim go down to New Orleans, and you get there. Really, I don't know. Have you been to New Orleans?
No, I've not been to New Orleans.
Yeah, it's really in terms of the States, it's really one of the better places. I would say most people like New York, San Francisco, New Orleans, they would be tops. And then the Grand Canyon, maybe a little bit of Vegas for some self-torture. So when we arrived in New Orleans, it was the old quarter, Le Vieux Carré. And you got this it was actually apparently they built this whole area for Napoleon when he was gonna do an exile. So I don't think he ever went there. But if you know about New Orleans, if you have any idea about New Orleans, it's one of their special historical places as well. You had the French Cajuns coming down from Canada down the Mississippi, the fur traders. And then, basically when they had slaves, they let the slaves off on Sunday. And so the slaves would go down to part of the French Quarter called Congo Square, and they would jam on Sundays. They had the day off, which was unique in that time. Nobody else was. The other non-French slave owners, the white European ones, they weren't so laissez-faire with. They weren't so free with letting the slaves off, and then in that scene, they started improvising, and then you get jazz. Basically, you had King Creole, who had a street band, and they used to go around the street, and that's when they took the French horn and they changed it into like a sax, or you got a whole different thing coming out of that, and then built into the traditional jazz. Then Louis Armstrong, of course, was one of the key people. But you also have
was a street performer.
Eh?
Louis Armstrong was a street performer.
Yeah. They were called the street bands. They'd go along the street with all the brass. They didn't need microphones, right?
Yeah, of course,
yeah. I mean, that's what's really cool about when you travel. It's like you start to realize that these places have real significance, historically, and usually like these, you get these big ports. Like New Orleans, like Montreal, Melbourne in Australia, Liverpool. You get like, these are like really magic places where a lot of different people pass through, and they bring their stories, they bring their music, they bring their, you get this melting pot thing. And so you had so much came out of this New Orleans, not to mention the jazz, but also aspects of the blues. These hymns from Africa. You also had it's also the Voodoo Empire, Voodoo epic center in the world. You also had Latinos, because it used to belong to Spain. So you got really cool things happening in New Orleans.
Big now it's
a little bit touristy. But if you look past the touristy part, you still get some good stuff. So when I was coming to New Orleans, I used to, like, when I was traveling, I always embraced the place. Like, oh wow, what's really special about this place? Almost like a child's eye where the book becomes alive. And there I was in New Orleans, and seeing this like old town, Jackson Square, with this old French look, with the bits of Spanish and Latin and all this iron, because they had a lot of. You could see the iron balconies. If you've ever seen that in Mardi Gras, where they have these big festivals, that's because of all the old ships, because they would take the iron, they had excess iron from the ships, and they would then put it into the buildings. You'll see that in lots of melting pot cities. And I was just absolutely intrigued, and I was just thinking like, that's like coming from Virginia Beach. This was my first European experience in essence. Though it wasn't European, but it's more European than most places.
Yeah, it had a feel of it.
Yeah, more so than Busch Gardens or Disney. So I went down there, and the first acts I saw was Waldo and Woodhead. Have you heard of Waldo and Woodhead?
No.
Okay, now I'm gonna show you my age, man. Waldo and Woodhead, they were one of the defining acts, at least that I've seen. I'm sure people would say Butterfly Man and a few others, but they were like street theater, basically, where they combined juggling skills, music skills. Waldo was like a kind of consummate presenter, looking, kind of the boy next door, but very deadpan, a little bit like Buster Keaton, but he spoke as well, and he juggled, and then, so he was playing the straight guy, and then Woodhead was more the clowny kind of guy. And just to give you an example, one of the things that you don't see this very often these days, because it's probably harder to make money with a duo, but so while he would be talking and doing his like presentation, Woodhead would be starting to blow a balloon. And so he would continue, like, and he would say, Woodhead, are you getting ready? Okay. And he would keep talking, and then Woodhead would be, and this went on for like 10 minutes, And And so then Woodhead would start to do some things. Where you at, Woodhead? Okay, yeah. And he keeps talking. And then Woodhead would be like, the balloon's getting bigger. So it's building tension. And then 10 minutes later, it's fully extended. And he's wrapped his whole body on it. And he's blowing, and he's shaking. It's just like, I thought that was so brilliant, man. It was like, how clever was that, And you saw the personalities, you saw the way that they related. You saw this building tension. Obviously, the balloon's going to pop. Then they went into like other pieces with music and juggling. They did a big juggling thing where they're throwing the clubs, the guitar, the banjo, the animal cage. And I remember when I was watching it, I just thought, this is not only is it entertaining, so it's clever, and I could see that people that were watching it, there was kind of a respect, that these guys know what they're doing and they've been around. This is culture, we're hitting culture here. And I think as an American boy, that the worst thing I could imagine when you see an act, even like myself, would be like someone thinks, oh God, that feeling when you feel like you have a bad show or you're not good enough.
Yeah.
It's a deep cut. It's a deep cut. We all must have gone through that. And nothing would be scarier, man. And that I was so scared after watching Waldo and Woodhead, watching all these other acts. I just didn't want to get up there and do a show. And I just freaked out. In fact, I caved. And I just didn't do it for the first couple of days. And we went to Bourbon Street at nighttime, juggled fire, unicycle, typical stuff, and got, and made like $15, $20, quick hats. And then we'd go back in the day. Yeah. And then we'd kind of like, we'd go back and then we'd watch the Masters again to build up our confidence. Eventually we got an act through, and I remember like feeling really embarrassed in front of these really seasoned performers, It was like, and to be friends with them meant everything to me, if they liked me.
That you get a bit of God worship.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. These guys were and girls, and they were like idols. They were like who we want to be. They're like the storytellers. They represent the Buddhas. They represent this whole life change. If I could have that show, if I could be that kind of person, then that's the passport. You can go anywhere.
Suddenly life would make sense.
So life would make sense. Yeah. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like from that perspective, at least, until you realise it's just a different level of misery.
Yeah. I got to tell you a couple of funny stories about New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans really for me is like, if you asked me how this whole thing happened, it's right in the center of it all. It's like, but I had some very, very funny things happen. There was one, because me and Tim did some shows as a duo, then eventually we started doing our own solo things, and we kind of like didn't really hang out that much after we started like splitting up a bit. I realized quickly that okay, I gotta find my thing. But when I was doing the in Bourbon Street, I did the classic thing where you get on a unicycle, and I had the fire torches because you had to kick to the big effects right from the beginning, and so I did the classic where you ask someone to throw the fire torch. So I asked for a volunteer, and then this guy with a hook raised his hook in the air, and hook for a hand. And so I remember feeling a little bit nervous. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't want to make any mention of that. And so I handed him the torch. His hook took it. There was some tension, but I also thought, oh, cool. He's ready to embrace this. And so I got on the unicycle, 2 torches, did the classic, get the people clapping, slow, build more and more. I'm going around the unicycle. I'm getting more nervous, more tension. Second time coming around, getting ready. And then he throws the torch with his hook. And then, it just falls off the hand and falls on the street. And he always goes, oh. And you have to think quick and be clever, right? So I said, let's give him another go. Yeah, okay. So I give him back the fire torch, takes it with his hook. I get back on the unicycle. I'm going around, getting clap, clap, clap. I'm feeling even more tense now. I'm like, shit, man, what am I going to, if I've missed this again? You know that feeling when you're going to miss the trick again? What are you going to say? Is it going to start to go down? They're clapping. I'm really nervous. And then he throws the torch, and then I catch it. And I said, great, give him a hand. No, really. I wasn't going for a gag. I was literally, it was Freudian slip.
Yeah, it's just natural.
It was Freudian slip. It's the worst thing you can say. It's not funny in that moment. And so everyone started.
But it was funny in that moment.
Well,
right?
It was funny a little bit, but it was embarrassing. And because everyone's feeling the sympathy for this guy, right? And that could be hard. Yeah. And like maybe he had a sense of humor. But I looked at him and he kind of smiled. But the problem was I couldn't stop laughing. I lost it. I was so embarrassed. And then it wasn't just me. There was a black guy there who also couldn't stop laughing. And I was like trying to cover it up. I was trying to say, and I couldn't. And then all of a sudden the crowd mostly dissipated. And there was just the guy, black guy laughing. We just, oh fuck! I remember that. That was amazing. Oh, I got to tell you what. This
is one of the things. It's one of those things of experience, I suppose. Over the years and years of experience, now, if that situation would have come to you, you might have been able to understand how to work your way out of that situation. How to use that momentum.
Yeah. It's like once you say, "Give him a hand," and then what would I say now?
Or you say, because God knows you need one. You just keep delving into the joke.
Oh, well, that gets darker. Maybe. It's just so sensitive with physically disabled.
Very much, and you should be.
Because you don't want to do anything that would embarrass them. And
no, but at the same time, you don't want to also treat them like they're untouchable.
Exactly. And that's a fine line. Yeah, I agree. But anyway, there was another time, there was a woman, I used to do this thing where I used to pick up young boys or young ladies, put them on the shoulder, ride the unicycle. These are not like clever things, but this was like my first tools, right? My first tricks I learned. And so, because I was kind of a sporty guy, it used to hurt my back actually. So I realized later that if you get like, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, mate.
Can you see me?
I'm still here. I can see you, yeah.
Okay, because
you're peering into the screen. Sometimes you get a lag issue, but I can see you. You're fine.
Okay, because a message came on. So this time, so with this trick, I realized, if you got a woman who had a dress, you get more gags, right? Okay, now we wouldn't do that because it's too sexist. But at the time, and some people used to get pissed off at me when I did it. But it's you just grab anything that would work, right? It didn't matter what. So I'd pick up a woman with a dress, and then she'd be on the wrong thing, and I'd have to turn her around and flap the dress over. And I remember one time, some woman in Copenhagen later. Some American girl. She goes, "Put me down, please." She goes, "Oh God, oh my God!" She said, "I've just peed. I've just peed. And I said, "What?" She said, "No, really, I've just peed I've just peed." I said, "You didn't?" She said, "No, I did. I just wet myself." And so all of a sudden, I could feel something really warm on my shoulders, And I thought, yes, you have. But that was another one. But there was one that was really strong. In New Orleans, I didn't have a young person because you obviously younger, they're not as heavy, and there was no one there. And then I was forced because I didn't have such a great variety of things to do at that time, paraphernalia of tricks and ideas and concepts. And so I picked like a woman. She was like 30, but she was a businesswoman with a business suit on. And I didn't care at that moment. I thought, I have to do the trick. So I got her, and she said, and I started to go to lift her up. She said, "No, put me down. And I thought, the people were laughing. No, put me down. As I'm lifting her up, I'm like, I've gone too far now to put her down, because then it would be like,
you've committed to the joke.
So I'm committed to it. And so I'm lifting her up. And then what happens is, as my hands are picking her up, she's got like a silk thing underneath, and my hands go, and her dress goes up. And I just remember this really slow motion, like, and she leaned back, and then she just smacked me. And it was like,
which, to be honest, is the best thing she could have done for you at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I did like a slow motion full. But honestly, those moments I was really embarrassed. I mean, like now nothing would embarrass me so much. I would turn it into an opportunity. But those things were like.
But you also probably wouldn't put yourself in a situation like that now. You'd be a wilier dog, understand the mechanics of it better. No.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't pick up a woman and put her on my shoulders physically anyway. But I don't know. I'm kind of good. I'm getting to a point now where I don't give a shit anymore.
The thing is, it's fine you can pick a woman and put her on your shoulders. There's no issue with that, as long as they're okay and they'll be fine with it. It's that judgment, isn't it?
Yeah, you're looking for that person that looks like they want to have fun, and not the awkward person that you feel you're going to embarrass them or whatever. But I wouldn't do that particular trick anyway. But I know what you mean. Yeah, if you it depends on many factors. If we're talking trade, But I'll just tell you this other one. It was. Am I going on too long here?
You're fine. Carry on, man. By all means.
We're stuck in New Orleans. Which is much what the musicians say a lot in New Orleans. They're all stuck there in like a time warp because they can't get out, playing all the music bars. So fast rewind. Fast forward. I'm gonna weave it back to New Orleans, but after this New Orleans experience, I went back and decided to go back into university. And I just thought, okay, this performing thing, as much as I love it and stuff, it just scared the hell out of me. And I thought, well, I better get the backup thing, and because I kept trying to finish university. And I think I spent 6 years, but I never finished. And then trying to go back to university, but then the performing bug hit again. And of course, I couldn't settle down. I was too hyper. I couldn't do my studying. And then at the time, my brother, Johnny, he offered me a job as a chauffeur. A limousine company he started in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is like a big beach resort, good old boys, South Carolina. So I went down there, and I went down there just to check it out. Went for a week, and I bought, I used my show outfit. I had like gloves, and I had a top hat, tuxedo, and I had these gold bean bags. And so I just basically thought, all right, I'm going to merge the show into chauffeur. So I had I built up a little shtick where I would say, welcome to Global Airlines. We don't just take you for a ride, we take you for a show. And then I would, I had a red carpet with two top hats, and the people, when they first arrived, they walked across the red carpet. Once they went inside the limousine, I would give them like a kind of presentation. I'd say, here's the window button for this. Here's the window here. I said, oh, here's the jacuzzi button. Don't press that. Ha ha. And then I said, I said, here at Global Airlines, we see, hear, or say nothing. So if you want privacy, put the window up. And then once I get in there, they were laughing and this guy's fun. And then I'd start to be, I'd get in the driver's seat and start driving. And then I would do a thing where I would put the window down and say, welcome to Global Airlines. Here at Global Airlines, we subscribe to the South Carolina driving law, where we do not juggle, where there will not be juggling and driving because it's illegal in the state of South Carolina. So then I would juggle and then stare with my knee, ha ha ha. And actually, it was quite fun. We would go to like nightclubs and stuff, and I would be like their sort of troubadour, and I'd go into the venue. They asked me to come in, and I would be like, so I became a little celebrity in Myrtle Beach, like being this kind of crazy chauffeur, and I kind of enjoyed it, but it started to become meaningless after a while. I thought, no, man, come on. So I decided, I stayed there for about 2 years in Myrtle Beach. My brother was living there. He opened up a gay club called Offshore Drilling, and I thought that'd be funny. And he had a security company. He had lots of businesses. And basically, I was like, no, I need to go west. I need to become a performer again. And I didn't know what's going to happen, but I just had to get out. I could feel myself, feeling a little bit boring and mediocre, and not challenging my emotional potential or my whatever. So I took this offer to go to Colorado, and went to Vail, Colorado. They were supposed to they pay me for a month, and then I would get a Colorado real estate license and sell timeshare. I don't know why I'm telling you this. This is really embarrassing, but there you go.
It does seem to be a natural home for the entertainer is sales, because we're used to presenting something,
Yeah. No, I was just taking that to get to Colorado, to be honest. I think I wasn't really ever planning to sell, but I thought, okay, they're going to pay my way there. They're going to pay, okay, I'll give it a go, But the thing what happened was, first I went there with my, I'd had a Chrysler LeBaron convertible, and I was already 2 months late on my car payment. And I took my dog, Israel, his Jewish dog, and took everything I had. I remember the car was so full of stuff, he literally had to stick his head out the window, and which his lips were quite dry when we arrived. I'm just kidding. When we got there, he was, so I started studying, and I had one apartment. I was living with these other guys that were also studying. And one day I was moving out to another place, and I remember taking everything out. And I was rushing. I was late for the class. So I put all my stuff and my dog in the car, because after the class I was going to go and then take it all into the new place. And I put the window down and everything, so the dog was fine. And he was comfortable. He had all my things. And I came out of the class, and then the car was gone. The car was gone, all my possessions, and my dog. And I remember freaking out. And then I remembered that I actually called up the company and told them where I was, because I was late for my payment. And they basically went and repossessed my car with my dog.
All your stuff and your
With
dog.
all my shit and all my dog. And I remember this was a real low point. And one of the guys who was...
Repossessed your dog?
No, no, my car. And they took my dog.
But the dog was in it, yeah.
Yeah, man. Can you imagine? This is like a fucking Bojangles story, I'm traveling with my dog, and they took my dog, man. This is like, damn, dog down, dog.
I lost my car. I lost my dog.
The dog was a little more important because the car wasn't really mine, owned by the bank. Anyway, this guy that was there, he was a cousin of Dolly Parton. Interesting. From Tennessee, from the same town, called Forge Valley, whatever. So he drove me 2 hours to Denver. I got all my things. I got my dog. They kept the car, and went back, and then finished this class for about 2 weeks. And I remember I'd run out of money, a little bit like now, actually. Can you imagine? All these years later, I'd run out of money. And I literally was like, I had to borrow here and there. I had to and I was literally getting hungry, that kind of that humanity burn where you feel like a useless human being, and fear, a lot of fear and suffering. Just like, what have I done with my life? I was 23 at the time, or 23, 24. And I just got to a point that there was no way out. And I looked at the après-ski, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do a street show, because I had to. And it was that thing where I was hungry. I had to do it if I want to eat, no more borrowing money from anyone or anything. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here, brother. I'm listening.
Okay. So this was the day I was gonna do a street show, après ski, in the winter. So I had my ski clothes on, So I went and bought some oranges. I went and bought some ping pong balls, watermelon. I had my fire torches, got some stuff for the fire, lamp oil or whatever it was. And right, I'm going to do it. So I take all my stuff down there. I'm fucking nervous. And then this day was snowing as well. And so I can't remember what time it was, 6 or something. Everyone's coming down the slopes, and I found my pitch. And I think I started with fire torches, built the crowd, passed the torch stuff, went into and I remember it was snowing. It got worse as it went along, and there was like huge, thick white snowflakes. This is Colorado, Rocky Mountain. It's two hours high. And I'm doing white ping pong balls with it snowing, big white. So you're looking at billions of white, ping pong balls. There's a slight color tone. So, but at the end of all of this, I did the fruit and the egg with the watermelon stuff, and at the end, I made like $200 something, and it was so profound, man. It was like Gone with the Wind. It was that moment when she's like reaching in the soil. She's lifted up the potato. This is that woman that was a rich woman, if you remember. I don't know if you saw Gone with the Wind, the movie.
I haven't seen it. No, I saw it as a child, but not.
Yeah, it's epic. In the Civil War, the North, completely burned down Charleston and everything. And this woman was, she had to like use her curtains to be made into dress, and she had to get in the dirt. Very Hollywood-like, but still profound. And then she like lifted up this potato, and she's got mud on her face, and she said, I will never go hungry again. And I just like, as classic as that is, it was very real to me, I just thought I was so happy, that kind of happy you can cry. And it was like, it wasn't just one show. It was like, that's it. And it was 1984, I think, 83, 84. No, I think it was 84. And that was the moment. And it took me literally 3-4 years of trying this, going to New Orleans. I was doing street shows at Waterside, Norfolk, Virginia, a little bit in Baltimore. And then from then on, that's what I did. That's who I am. I found it. That's a bloody long way to answer a question, isn't it, mate?
It's a good answer. I mean, I empathize that completely. I mean, I have this weird feeling, maybe you have it now, that I felt I had that realization that this is how I can live my life. I can go to any square, anywhere in the world, so long as I speak English, for me at least, because my work's tied a lot to language, and I can make money. I felt like the smartest guy in the room. And this current situation has made me feel a bit humbled with that.
Mm. Yeah, what can you do now? We used to like, we can always go back to the street, right?
Yeah.
We never had this situation. You can't go back to the street.
No, many lifetimes since this happened.
I mean, I'm curious. Like, you're still like mostly making your living from the street, and maybe a lot of the people that are watching your thing are as well, or not. I don't know. But like, what do you do now?
This thing is almost breaking even, not quite, but it's more or less paying for itself. It's paying for the cost of the bottles of wine. So if I have a bottle of wine when I do it, it pays for that. It pays for the internet, pays for the service for the thing we're using now. But in terms of going out and making cash to the street performer, you can't do it because there's no street left right now to perform on. And I think the mistake a lot of people are making is they're trying to take their work and put it on the street and put it on put it directly onto the screen. And I don't think that works. I think you have to be creative, use that knowledge you have there and transfer it into the medium to make a piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing here is great, by the way, and I applaud you. And I think it's, you should have interviewed Cotton before he committed suicide a few weeks ago, for example. That's just information lost, and that's a shame. But okay, we have videos of him, and there's like Butterfly Man, and I mean, I wouldn't say I'm one of the most famous street performers, but certainly I was in there. I was in the gang. Did a lot of traveling and did all of that. I think, in a way, like my street heroes Waldo Woodhead was would be the first one. There was also Waldo and Didier duo, and then there was Jose Edouard from New Orleans.
Would you like to say a little bit about some of them?
Sorry?
Would you like to say a little bit about some of them? Why they were your favourites? I
Well,
know you've talked about some already.
Okay, well, Waldo Woodhead, as I mentioned, it was like street theater. So it was more than just tricks, more than just energy shouting. It was something on a different level. And I've always, Chris and Alex would be. Though I wasn't really around. I think I arrived just after they had been quite famous.
So who was Chris and Alex?
Chris and Alex were Alex Dandridge and Chris something. They
Alex
were.
Yeah.
They were at Covent Garden. They were just a classic English, eccentric, quirky. And you'd have to have people like to throw in Chris Lynham. When I saw Chris Lynham, I was just like everybody blown away. And then it was just madness in his hair and his fireworks up his bum. You know about him putting fireworks up his bum, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there. I was there when one backfired.
Oh wow!
And it was my ex-wife, Beverly. She actually took him to the hospital. I'm trying to remember. There was another guy who used to go around on roller skates with his dog and play the saxophone. There was Nebula, Robot, and Ballet. Like the first time when I arrived in Covent Garden, right? I was like, I had been to New Orleans. I had seen South Street Seaport in New York. I hadn't yet been to Key West. I'd done my own local Norfolk. I didn't, and of course, Colorado, off Prisky. I didn't really know the scene, but when I didn't tell you the rest of the story. Sorry, I'm jumping. After I finished from Colorado, and I did that first show that got me that money, that got me out of my starvation. I started doing regular shows, and they let me. They didn't ask me to run on. They saw it was good. That was good for the people to have something, and there was nothing else there. Then I got enough money. I bought a flight to go to New Orleans because I wanted to go back to New Orleans, and I think I was even wanting to go back because now I had a better show, Plus, it was Mardi Gras, and I've been hearing so much about Mardi Gras. So I got enough money, got my ticket, arrived in New Orleans, and then immediately upon arriving, I got my bags with my props, but my dog was missing. And it was like the airline had lost my dog. So this was like a big thing. I was having a panic. And I remember it took about 30 minutes, finally looking through the luggage escalator. There comes my dog. He had to be in a cage, and it was like, oh God! You talk about. I guess I had a flashback about them stealing my.
They said your dog on the luggage carousel.
Yeah,
came through the thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's terrible. So I don't know. Maybe I made that up. Maybe it was just off the side. I can't remember. I seem to remember.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, eh?
Yeah. No, I seem to remember it was actually on the escalator, but I could be. Anyway, so I got my dog, I got my things, and I was in New Orleans, and so the first thing is, okay, now I need to find where's the pitch. Need to get a place to stay, and I had a dog. So honestly, I hadn't really traveled outside of Virginia. Got my dog down to Myrtle Beach, got to Colorado. Now I was on a plane, New Orleans. I didn't know how I was going to bring my dog everywhere, but I thought, never mind. He's like my family. So immediately, every time I tried to get in a taxi, they wouldn't let the dog on the taxi. I go on the bus. Only eye-seeing dogs. They would say only blind dogs. Or eye-seeing dogs. Obviously, a blind dog would have dark glasses.
Yeah, you could have turned around and said, "Look, my dog is blind."
Yeah, just put some dark sunglasses on.
Yeah.
But it was actually a serious problem because I finally found a place, but it was like 50 minutes from the Bourbon Street or Le Vieux Carré. Jackson Square, they called it Jackson Square because Andrew Jackson was the president, and they called it up there. So I had a problem. I couldn't get to the pitch, and there was a streetcar that was going there, and it just wouldn't. The only way I could get on the streetcar is if I had a blind dog, right? Or an eye, whatever you call them. So I decided that I was going to become blind, and I'm telling you this story because if I had to say, there's a few like parallels about things that have happened on the way, and it's still happening. I was telling you the story the other day about the trolley, but there I had a situation. And if I didn't do something, I couldn't do the street. I'm not going to walk 50 minutes, or maybe it was an hour, to take my dog to the street every day, and then to do street shows and walk another hour. And I didn't have anyone to drive me. They didn't have Uber in those days, or they let dogs. So basically, I had a serious problem. And then all of a sudden, from this ridiculous, serious problem, it's like all of a sudden you get this excitement. It's naughty, or it's like going to be a problem, or it's going to be, this thing. It's scary. How are you going to fix this? I decided I'm going to become blind, and so I went back to my apartment. I got dark sunglasses, and I started to get psyched, right? Like you do, like if you're going to do a show, we rehearse. You start
get the character.
Yeah. So I did the glasses. All I can remember was there was, we all know, Stevie Wonder, right? And then we know a bit Ray Charles, and there's certain movements. Stevie Wonder has the figure 8. Ray Charles goes left and right. And then you remember with a blind person, they always do this thing where they tilt their head a little bit, And I'm not getting the feeling yet. So let me see if I get the feeling. So they just tilt the head so they can hear better, And so I did that, looked in the mirror, checked it out. I thought, okay, got my dog. Okay, I can do this. So next day, I'm getting ready. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. Really scared, though, nervous. So got everything ready, got my backpack, put the juggling clubs in the back, got my unicycle, got my dog. Took his
unicycle.
Yeah, of course. So I forgot about that part. I'm gonna be blind. They're gonna believe me. So I took the lead, choked it up on my wrist, and I practiced a little bit walking down the street. And then it was a bit exhausting because you're concentrating. So I relaxed. I had another ways to go before I got the streetcar. I could see the streetcar there, so I knew I could see some people near there. And so I started to okay, it's showtime. So I got my glasses on, got everything ready, and then I'm walking close. And as I get closer, you can hear everybody goes quiet, right? There's just silence, there's tension, and so I'm doing this thing, and I've learned. I pretend as though I'm not, I can't see anything, and then the streetcar. I said, excuse me, could you let me know when the streetcar is coming? And they said, oh, sure. And so nobody's questioning that I'm blind, right? They don't do that. People are scared to do that, even though I had a unicycle juggling props.
Just in case.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm waiting for the streetcar. Streetcar comes up, and I'm hearing it, and now there's lots of tension. Door opens. Everyone's waiting for me. And so just as I'm going up to the steps, I realized that I hadn't practiced how to pay. Little detail, right? But in that moment, I got a bit of an anxiety wave. Like, shit, I didn't practice how to pay them. So I just put my hand in my pocket. I had some change, and I just held it out for the guy to take, right? But of course, I didn't trust anybody these days. So I'm slightly watching through my glasses, but while trying to pretend to be blind. make sure he doesn't overtake the money. And then he takes, and I said, oh, thank you very much. So I start to walk up the steps. Just at this moment, my dog, he's not really a professionally trained blind dog, so he starts to like pull the other way, and then it's like he's not cooperating. And I think there was a moment where there was a cat. He used to freak out at cats, and if I remember correctly, I think, but it was like he was distracted. And I said, come on, and I'm pulling him, and I'm like really fucking nervous, going up the step, and then like, thank you very much. Oh, and I go around, and I'm being blind, but I'm looking slightly, and some old lady gives me her front row seat, right? And I'm like thinking, oh man, you bastard. And I have to take it because, I'm blind. And so I take the little old lady's front seat. And then my dog, who's not used to being a blind dog, he decides to lie exactly in the middle aisle on the floor, right? And I can't squeeze him underneath. There's no space. So I'm like, oh, shit, okay, you just have to accept this. And then as people start to come in, everyone's got to like step over him. It's like a big thing. I'm like, oh, shit, I just want to get through this. And then, so finally everyone gets through. And then the streetcar's going. So I'm like, oh, thank God, okay. And then it's like I had to stay like that for ages. I don't know if you've ever been trying to be blind, but if you're like blind in public, and everybody's looking at you, it just seems like forever, It's like you're just there, and you got to stay in character, and I'm not really relaxing. It was so exhausting. It was like 20 minutes of being blind felt like, 3 hours. And but as I started to relax over time, I started to like look around a little bit, and there was these two young ladies, I don't know, 22, like around my age a little bit, and they were quite attractive. So I was like, wow, and they kept staring at me, and I was like, gosh, and I felt a little bit shy, but of course they didn't know I was looking at them, but they were looking at me because I had the dark sunglasses. And so anyway, finally I told the guy when we get close to Jackson Square to give me a holler. So when we got, he said, okay, mate. He said, not mate, he's not English. He said, next stop. I said, okay, thanks a lot. So it stopped. Now the nervous part is I had to get up, and I had to exit the streetcar while everybody's quiet. I mean, some of the people have already left. And so then I get up, I get my dog, and I start to walk down, and then everyone tries to help me, opens the door, helps me down. Just as my dog comes out, he does a leap for a cat because there was a cat there, and he used to go crazy about cats. And then, and I fall down the steps, and fuck, and then people lift me up, and then, you're right, yeah, fine, thanks a lot, yeah. And then I wait, door closes, streetcar goes on its way. And I'm just standing there, and there's about 10 people just quietly, just stunned, looking at me. It must have looked like quite a sight with the dog, with my glasses, with my backpack, with my clubs. And I just thought, I'm going to do it. So I just took the glasses off, and I said, how you doing? I just walked out. That was that big release. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. So that was my short story. Blind juggler in New Orleans. I should just do a fast forward on that. Those two girls that saw me, they later came and saw me doing a show, and they came up to me after the show, and they were looking at me, and they were and they couldn't believe it. It was the blind guy, and then they started laughing, and they didn't stop laughing, and I just thought.
So did you do the blind guy again to get in? Was that something you did every morning?
Yeah. I did it. I did it for. I was there for a week. I did it for a week, and then I met this guy called.
Doing blind in the show.
Would have been good. Yeah, I guess I could have. Yeah.
Full method, blind all day long. Go back home.
That would have been good. Yeah, a blind juggling act. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
because it is possible. You can juggle blind, can't you? Have you ever done
Yeah.
it? If you close your. I used to do that actually. I used to practice but yeah. So that was my thing. But the thing about that, nobody will really understand this except other performers. But when you get in those situations, like in a way they could be considered like crisis moments, or at least pretty big.
Yourself, stupid incidences.
Yeah, I tend not to just see them as incidents. I really, really, there's something I used to do when I was a kid, right? But like if I was running, I would set this like target thing where I had to like go all the way there and back, and then I had to the last 100 I had to sprint with everything. And anytime I was in a situation, I knew that if I pulled back and I would get strangled with fear, and I would get depressed later because I didn't deal with it right. Rather it be going swimming in the water. I remember when I lost my keys, if I didn't go and like climb up to the window, whatever I had going, I used to put mattresses on the grass. I used to jump off the roof of my house down on mattresses. So I was doing some pretty.
You're a cliff jumper. So you're a cliff jumper rather than a rock climber.
I jumped from the top of my house onto bed mattresses. Yeah, that was one. Yeah. We created this game when I was young because we got bored, And
I did the same thing.
Yeah, did you really? What, jumping off cliffs?
Not cliffs, but you pile mattresses outside and jump off them. But the cliff thing, I use it as a way of talking about the different ways people approach life. So some people, they'll see something scary and they'll think, oh, wow, look at the cliff. I'll jump off. It looks like I'll be okay. And they'll jump off and find out, So they're cliff jumpers. They'll take chances. They'll see something that scares them and they'll throw themselves into it. Other people are rock climbers. They'll start at the bottom and they'll have all the gear ready and they'll go slowly and methodically through things in a safe manner. It's my little thing. So it seems like you're someone who you'd be like, if you were in the right era, the right inclination, an extreme sports person, you'd be able to see something threatening and throw yourself into it without too much conviction. Without
definitely. I wasn't a calculator in that sense. Later, we learned we started to sharpen our tools about how to survive as a performer, how to get into the proper business and stuff. And I remember like when I got better, I got boring, but people didn't take you serious if you were just being edgy, crazy, and unstable, which some of the great performers are like that. Brian Reed, is it Reed? Brian. We had him on. I loved when I watched him. I remember him like picking up that huge fire. His hair was messy, and he was like he looked like he didn't have a clue, and you just adored him for this ability to he definitely, and he was really like that as well. In some aspects, he wasn't like everything was perfectly ordered. He had learned enough order to do the show, which was somehow very romantic. People that would just throw their life on the street like that, and let things unfold and deal with all the impractical stuff because they're absolute inside what they're doing and they're believing in what they're doing, and that really stayed with me. And often when I met successful professional stage performers, they just didn't have that. They didn't pay their dues on the street. They didn't have the arts and crafts. And I will always, defend street performers for that, because as I am, and I think even when I learned the stagecraft, I'm still streetwise and on stage. I'm still doing a little bit street on stage. I'm keeping that element of chaos and disorder, and I would never want a show to be that slick, but I have become slicker, But because music puts those contours, but in the way I live, and when I'm doing improv stuff, and even what I'd like to still do, I think it's very much organized chaos. I love it. I love I love that stuff that is emotionally driven and patterns of doing real stuff and then connecting it, and then you can sharpen it and it becomes You know, it's like a well refined spiral. It's taking abstract or anarchy even. You know. Do you remember? Did you ever see the circus called Archaeos?
No, I heard much about them, but I never saw them.
Yeah. So, like for example, so the Archaeos was this and they really took this like street performers. It was crazy. There was like they were doing things in that. It was in the 70s, I think. Oh, 70s? No, 80s. Mid 87, I guess, when I saw them, 86, 87. And they were just doing crazy stuff, man, you know. Just edgy, you know, and cranes and ballets and fireworks, poof. And I remember the chef coming out with his apron with meat all over him with his, and he just walked across the audience, staring at them, pissed off. You know, just bizarre stuff. And I was like, yeah, it was amazing. You asked about other street acts. I would say, I mean, Steve Rollins was a crafty guy. You know, was doing.
So, can we get on to
Sean Gann? Yeah, go on.
Can we get? Because I have a feeling that these are going to link into each other. You went to Covent Garden at some point. I've seen pictures of you in Covent Garden.
85.
85. So we've got other guys who've been in Covent during that time and talking about their time there. And it does seem like one of the places that will have the most people talking about being at, because everyone's done their time there, it seems.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your story about being in Covent, the place it was like, the atmosphere, the environment, performers, you know, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll give it to you from an ex-American, Pat, who's presently in America, but I feel more English and European these days. Feel much more comfortable there, actually. When I went back to New Orleans during this blind thing, and later I stayed with Jose, he told me all about Europe, and you can go around street perform. So we did the classic. Eventually we went to London, was there for a while, went to Amsterdam, got a Volkswagen van, fixed it up, traveled around, went to Munich, Marienplatz, Copenhagen, Switzerland, Lucerne, did Paris, and I was in London was always the center. So the first place we arrived was London. And I remember we arrived at Gatwick. Everything was so exciting and fresh, man. There was like such a buzz, such a new world. I didn't know really totally what to expect. Of course, as an American, you see all the old movies and the London fog, and but when I got there, it was bright, it was sunny, it was hip, it was Cosmo, it was interesting, it was, everything I could have more than I dreamt, of this new world, this new arty world, street scene. So we came in, had a backpack. I had my unicycle backpack, had some large plastic balls. I think I had to go in and get some things. And I think the first moment when I walked out, they were called, if I'm not mistaken, Nebula. And Andy, he was in a kind of a robot. And then his partner, sorry, terrible with names. She was a ballet, but on point. So she's doing ballet, he's doing the robot. I'm at Covent Garden, looking at the cobblestone, looking at the huge audience, beautiful sunny day, with the balconies of the puppet. Punch and Judy, yeah. Big columns behind, and just like, wow, I just was like, I just had this huge smile, and like, wow, and then there was just like, you just felt like someone just let you into a real movie, and then the performers were really nice. Everyone, hi, when you're the new person, like in the States at that time, people would be more like dogs, protecting their territory. But I remember everyone really being nice, and smiling and making me feel welcome. Of course, later I realized not everybody was as nice as they seemed, but anyway, it was the nice on the outside, inside they're looking. American. I mean, I was a bit tacky. I came with a gold necklace. I was like clean American boy.
But I
And
found that as well. I've seen friends come from America, and when I've seen them come over, in fact, when I first met them, they had very clean style. Like
yeah,
everything was very nice. It was all very polished. Everything was clearly a joke. It was
yeah,
it was all like wink.
yeah.
And it's a bit shocking for the English taste, where you are a bastard. There's no nudge, there's no wink. You just act like a bastard.
Yeah. That's the part of it. You've got the irony, the darker side of the humor, dirtier. It's more credible. It's like don't be too squeaky clean nice. And in the States, like you were like everything's such consumer society, so people could handle this sort of crazy anarchy on the street, but it had to be clean. You had to look nice, or maybe there were some that who were confident enough to be rough and to, they've lived enough to where the warts and the scars is part of the thing. But at that point, it was important that I looked like the artist, the performer. But my thing was I was really manic and threw things really high and sweating all the time, running around. I was just scared. Mostly, it was mainly insecure. Like most. Yeah, man, it's just fucking scary, isn't it? Being there, it's like you just don't. You're just worried that the energy drops, or they're not laughing. You're standing there, So if there's more you could run, the crazier you could be, the more you could cover up. The fact that I didn't have that much material, so I learned to use the audience more and more. But so Nebula was the first, and then there was a guy called Savalas, something. Not Telly Savalas, that's Kojak. He was like a James Bond character doing robotic. And
did he play guitar?
No.
He had a little banjo kind of thing. Okay, I think I know the guy.
No, must have been another guy.
Later went on to play banjo, maybe.
There was a guy that used to do Charlie Chaplin. Brilliant. Probably the best Charlie Chaplin. He looked and acted and lived like Charlie Chaplin. He was Iranian.
Charlie too. Yeah.
Where are these people now? I would love to see him.
I know Charlie. I want to get him on the show. The only issue with Charlie is that English is his second language.
Is he still around?
He's still around.
Oh man, please get us in touch, man. I just miss all and.
I will do. I'll catch you guys.
I mean, Alex Dandridge, and then there was
he's on Wednesday.
Cool.
Alex, if you want to see Alex.
Cool. Then there was also I've gone oh shit, I'm going to be terrible.
Aileen's just said yes. It was Savas.
Yeah, Sebastian. Oh, Aileen, yeah. So, and by the way, I think I saw Aileen's act later, since she wasn't there in the early days, but she's also another amazing. I remember her with her heels and her Scottish grit and charm, and I mean, everybody is like, I mean, I think we're very lucky, man. I think that our world is a very special world, and it's still. Nothing still compares to doing the street performing. It's you try to explain it to people. It's just so multi-layered. I mean, admittedly, after a while at doing Covent Garden, and then traveling, I did get to a point where I started to find that the things that you needed to have a successful street show, it started to get boring for me a little bit sometimes, getting people to shout and all that routine. And I understand that's part of it. And if you don't do that kind of stuff, you're just going to have a smaller hat. You're going to be a good artistic show, but you're not going to have the power hit. So that did annoy me. But, now as I get older, I'm even more nostalgic about all that. I should mention about Covent Garden, though, first of all. Try to remember some little stories that happened. I remember someone said to me, I don't think it happened with me, or did it? No, it wasn't me. No, I don't think so. Someone it could have been me, but I swear my memory's gone. But someone did fire torch juggling show, and the torch flew out of the hand and it landed in a pram. But the baby was okay.
I think that was Nick. Nick told that story, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I misquoted, but yeah.
Yeah, and then there was another story that someone had the petrol, and then the torch, and then some of the torch dropped. The cobblestone lit on fire. Some man or some Japanese girl had some plasticky thing. It burned into her skin. I remember hearing about some horror stories.
Yeah, there was that story in Australia. Yeah. I believe that was also Nick as well. Yeah.
But coming from the States, I definitely had I think I used to have old cards made. It was like I used to call myself the Jazz Juggler or Paul Morrocos Productions, and I remember I came at it with some little bit of the American business ideology at some point. I had trying to figure out how to make more money, and I was willing to go outside the box at that point. And I remember people up in Punch and Judy's, right? I made this long stick, really long, with some kind of box or something, and I would lift it all the way up. So that became a little bit post-show thing. People put money in, because I was thinking, you're not getting their money. They watch the show, right?
We go up there now. We go up there in Hatton now.
Yeah, but when I had done that, I hadn't seen anyone do that before. So I think I might have started the trend. And another thing I did, which was against the grain at that point, is I started going there. People used to hang out. We used to play chess in the winter. I remember really cold and had coats and playing chess. But later I started going post when the theaters let people out. I noticed there was this huge rush of people. 9 o'clock? 8:40. When did people come out of the theater normally? Showtime is 7:30 or 8? Or 7:30?
Daytime matinee is 1. I think maybe it's 7.
7. So it's maybe
it's 8.
8:45, 9 o'clock? 8:45? Yeah, or 9 o'clock, 9:05. And so then all of a sudden you get a huge rush of people. And so I started noticing it. I thought, shit, I'm going to do a show there. And I remember for about 2 weeks, and I was really quite fine-tuned into my street act at that point, much more confident. And I grabbed them, and I had a huge, massive, must have been 400 or 500, I don't know, more, maybe even up to 800, 600, 700, really thick, huge square. On the other side, on the
East Piazza.
And that used to go out to the street where there were some theaters there. I don't know if
there is Drury Lane. Yeah, Drury Lane, and there's another couple of big theaters there as well.
Yeah, so then that was massive, and I did the fire immediately to grab their attention, and man, I had some really big hats and I thought, shit, that was better than doing the day one, but I did them all. Those were.
And so you said you guys used to play back of the pitch, sit and play chess. So the culture there like?
I'll just. Basically, when I first went to Covent Garden, like I said, it was the summer, 85, I think it was. Enchantment, really. People were so nice. And what for me was important too is that the act, my first street show went well. And, if you came in as a visitor and you had a good act, good enough to where people were oh, wow. And that's usually about because you're a foreigner, you're doing something different than what people were doing. It's not about that you're really good or something. It's just that you're mainly different, or they see it working. And I was mostly insecure. I probably acted a little bit confident, but I was never confident. And then immediately people wanted to be your friends. If they might be friendly, but if you didn't have a really good act, they'd still kind of be friendly, but you could pick up, that vibe, and
pecking order kind of thing.
Yeah, and even if they weren't trying to put you down, but you could feel it, you know. But if your act was good, and you could feel the way they would react to you. I mean, that's how insecure I was, and maybe I'm
But
talking about myself.
that's what a lot of the experience of young buskers is like. Though you're going into a place where you feel like you have to prove yourself, and there is kudos from being able to prove yourself, experience, knowledge, all these other things, and third, by having a successful show.
It's also being included in the tribe, you know. Like the worst thing is, like, you know, it doesn't go down well, or, you know, not really, and that happened, like I told you at the beginning in New Orleans. You know, I failed and felt it's horrible, and you know that feeling of rejection or not being good enough, that was so deep cutting. You know, you'd do anything to avoid that, you know, because we go through enough hoops to be a performer. But after that experience, and then going off to Munich, Copenhagen, there's some long stories where I had my dog and he couldn't come back to England, and I had to put him through quarantine for 6 months. But there was a process when I was traveling around, and I remembered thinking, London, everything was happening in London. People were coming up, offering me gigs, you know, £100, you know, and you'd have to travel. I didn't know London, but I just thought, wow, London's the place. So I was waiting to go back to London. This particular trip, I was on a ferry, and like most times they ask, you know, you have to go, and they say, so what are you doing? I said, I'm just visiting. And they said, all right, okay, how much money you have? And someone told me you should always lie. So I said, 500. I got 500. He said, okay, can you show it to me? And I didn't have 500, probably had like 75. And I was like, I left it in my bag. And he said, okay, just when you get it, bring it back to me. So while we're going across this ferry I think it was from France to England, I was panicking. Like, how am I going to get this 500? You know, who, you know? And I started going around talking to people, thinking someone would lend it to me so I could show it. At the end, I couldn't ask anyone to give it to me, and I went back to say to him, and I said, I just made up a lie. I said, sorry, actually, I went back to my bag and it's not there. Someone stole it. And even I went as far as I went on the security and filled out the log to say someone stolen 500. And so I think he didn't really believe me. And he said, okay, just stay there afterwards. Everybody got off the ferry. They came up to me and I said, yeah. And they weren't even bothered to find out. So they just put me into a room, locked it from the outside. And I think there was a couple drug dealers that they caught. And it was me and a couple of drug dealers, someone from Lebanon, someone from Morocco, or something, I don't know, Russian. And then they sent me back on the boat, back to France. This was the second year after Covent Garden. And so I went back to Paris and felt pretty defeated. I thought, shit, because London had become like my new place where I felt safe. You know, I knew people, I knew I could do the street show. Now I'm going to Paris. I don't really know France. Of course, we all had dreams of, you know, going to France and Paris and stuff. And I'll never forget that scene. It was like, oh man, I don't know. Did you ever do Paris?
No, never.
Well, they used to have a place called Pompidou. And it was like this big modern art building, shopping area and stuff, museum. And so they would do acts there. And you're talking about massive crowds. There was people like David Shiner, who later did Cirque du Soleil. He used to do these massive shows, you know, and he'd do like the bank robbery scene. So you'd have the bank robber, you'd have the woman working in the bank, which the bank robber would take, and then you'd have the police, and you'd get people to act out the parts. And I don't know if you ever seen those kind of street shows. It's like audience participation. But he would have like thousands of people. I mean, he was like a legend there. But that was just before I arrived. So when I arrived and got kicked off the boat, it was very zen performances. It was the opposite what I saw in Covent Garden. They were doing like slow movement stuff, right? Because it's such a big place. It wasn't as intimate as Covent Garden. Not that Covent Garden's very intimate, but it was much bigger space, right? So more people around. So they went the opposite. Instead of having more energy, they went less energy. You know, and so I remember this one act. She like forever imprinted in my brain. She had this blue plastic bag, and she had this kind of Michel Jarre music, which in those days was sort of like electronic, but very romantic, electronic, slow. And she was just there with a blue, like a rich blue plastic bag, and she had her little ghetto blaster, her little speaker there on the thing, and she would just take 20 minutes to put herself in the bag, right? And she had a crowd of thousands watching her put herself into a plastic bag. I was like, okay, so I'm getting a sense of the French art. Are you still following?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
So then I was like watching that. I was watching these other slow motion acts, very French avant-garde. And I went out there with my fast unicycle, throwing clubs, nervous. I couldn't get a crowd, man. I had it was too much. It just didn't look. You have to have that Zen command the space, and I was doing the opposite. Desperate, and I had very little money at that time. They kicked me off the boat, and I had a very bad show. 15 French francs, maybe enough for coffee or croissant or something, but not very much. And I remembered that I knew Cotton, and Cotton was living in Paris, and I remember looking him up, going there, and him, had his French coffee. He had Tom Waits on the music. And it was in a croissant, and I was there with him. He said, "Yeah, man, I'll probably just stay here." So I stayed there a couple of days. But those are that's the stuff I remember. I remember all these trips, and when I went back to, I stayed there for about weeks or months. I went to Switzerland. I had a girlfriend. Those days when you met someone, you had a chance also to have a place to stay. But it was okay. They were looking for people like us. And so I was doing shows in Switzerland, made enough money, decided I got a new passport without my stamp on it, got back into England. It was wintertime. There was a woman there called Patty Webb, street performer, Patty Webb, if I got the names right. And she did fire juggling and stuff. She offered me a place to stay. But that first night I arrived, I had a Bedford van. I remember not having a lot of money as well. I drove to England instead of taking the boat. And when I arrived, it was around Christmas time. And there was a Christmas tree and people were singing Christmas carols. And I was sitting in my van, trying to sleep in my van and feeling quite depressed, cold, and scared to go out. I didn't want any of the performers to see that I was, being rough. They all had good memories of me. I didn't want to lower the tone. Eventually I got nerve. I came out, started to meet people, started doing shows. Patty Webb invited me to stay at her place for a few weeks. And it was during that time I started to hang out. And then it was winter, and that's when we were playing chess. And chess became our entertainment every night, sitting around on you said it was at the East Wing or the West Wing?
Well, the West Piazza is the one with the church, and the East Piazza is the one with the road.
Yeah, East Piazza. So yeah, around the East Piazza, we'd sit there on the inside pitch. That's where Charlie Chaplin used to do his act mostly, and we were just
Charlie's still doing it. He's still doing the balancing, Charlie, to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is this Charlie Iranian Charlie?
Iranian Charlie, yeah, he's still there. He's still there doing it.
Man, we're talking about. Wait a minute. This is 36 years later. Really?
Yeah, he's still there. He was working Christmas time.
So how old would he be now? He would have been like...
It's got to be he's coming up 80 odd, isn't he?
Wow! Oh, man.
He's still good, yeah. So anyway, sorry, I digressed then. I should be helping, not really making it any worse. So you played chess.
You go ahead. No, that's fine.
Indoor pitch.
That was during those days. I should mention Dr. Stewart I was a big fan of Dr. Stu. I don't know if people know this, but Ali G stole half his acts from Dr. Stewart. Cohen, Saren Cohen Shaper, who did LAG and did
Cohen, yeah.
Borat and all the other stuff. Yeah, he actually watched Dr. Stewart and sold his act, but then he transformed it in his way with his speaking, but he essentially copied Dr. Stewart.
Could have paid him a few quid for it, couldn't he?
Well, yeah, for example, but Dr. Stu. I mean, people don't know this, but Dr. Stu was, he was so ahead of his time, man. He was doing like slow motion groove. He was doing funk stuff. He looked like a tall rabbi doing Michael Jackson, and he was like really tall and slim.
Can you describe some of the things he'd do, the routines?
He would do beatbox rapping, and then he would do slow funk, like slow motion dance, and he would do like a lot of the kind of stuff that you saw that came later, like Michael Jackson dancing and that stuff. But he did it in his way. He was much more street cool. He used to have this tall black hat, and he had these glasses with one like normal, not like an open glass, and the other was dark. But he had this top hat, and it was just like totally. And he would mix his music, so it was like fast and slow and I can't describe exactly, but I'm trying to remember.
He did poetry as well.
Yeah, more like a mixture of. It was more rapping, like street rap with an attitude, but he like a black Jewish English guy, tall with top hat. He was on a whole different scene, a whole different zone, and I became a kind of a fan of what he was doing. There was also Charlie Lynam, Alessandro Bernardi. They had an act. I forgot what they were called. They had a music act with guitars. Charlie was playing panpipe and singing. Alex was on guitar, Alessandro Bernardi. And then they had another guy called Kai, played bass. And they were like really cool band and just fun and frivolous. And they would just, people were enchanted. They'd be sitting around. And I was watching them. I always wanted to be a musician, though I was a juggler. My first dream was to play music.
Did you find there was a separation between the two communities at that time?
Exactly, yeah. So there was different camps. There was the juggling camp, or juggling first was in like kind of circle. Then you had not too far. You had the clown, magician, or robotic. Also connecting with the juggling scene, comedy performing scene. But then you get into the music thing, and this was always a separate thing. Of course, as variety performers, we all loved music, and the musicians all loved the variety performing. Yeah. So we all had that in common. But yeah, you're right. The scenes were different, and for me as well. I remember we would go. There would be gatherings at the pub before and after. I never felt totally. I didn't feel like I was totally in the inner circle, but I got almost one layer back, where I started to feel like these were my guys and hanging out. And then like Steve Rollins, Sean Gondini, we were all hanging out. And then there was Andre was there, and Eddie Izzard was there in the scene for we were all hanging out for 2 years. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You were going to describe Steve Rawlins' work before, and I interrupted you. Charlie Lynam also says, "I knew you were going to dig this."
Charlie Lynam said what?
He said, "I know, capital no, I know you're going to dig this." Exclamation.
Dig what? Dig what?
I don't know. I've got no context. That's all I've got from it.
I know you're going to do. Well, let's start with Chris. When I saw Chris, he had a banjo. And he was playing, and then there was a dog barking, and he made the dog barking. He almost rhythmically set it up, So I can't remember the song. Dun, 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 and the dog went and dun, dun, and dog, and it was just like genius. And I thought, I just love that kind of interplay, the madness. And he wasn't like doing juggling; he was doing more cerebral stuff, out there stuff. And Chris Line was a big influence on me. And I think I've told you, Chris. He was one of the stars on the street. And I love the way he would do stand up or talk kind of surreal. Then he would do this crazy visual stuff. I remember later watching him on. Man, this is incredible. My brain's working. First Exposure, probably the first TV show that he did. He absolutely nailed that TV show. And I remember I was with my first wife, Beverly. We were watching that. And it was like one of the first comedy shows where street performers had access to. And he did this thing where he did the stand-up and he talked about snow, and then he said something like an art attack. He started to dance and pull out like scarves, and he just like went on this kind of spacey, kind of freaky thing. And then at the end, he did Louis Armstrong, I see blue, and it was like, wow. I thought it's not possible, not possible to go from stand-up, surreal, abstract, absurd, some juggling, and then into a song, and it was like, yeah. And he just I was spellbound. And I have to say, jumping from and then of course the fireworks, up the bum, that became his signature. And then just
was that the finale? That was the big finish, I take it.
Yeah, and watching things like that, you start to
sing along. Just out of interest, context of when he did it. Then, would you get the crowd to sing along when they were doing it? So it was this big group sing and dance routine at the end.
I don't remember that, but yeah, I don't remember that specific. But it's funny, isn't it? We have selective memory, but yeah, he did lots of that kind of stuff. I'm just
interested. Yeah. Just a quick thing. I know you're going to dig this! Exclamation mark was a Dr. Stew song. That's what Charlie Lynham was talking about.
Oh yeah, I know you're going to dig this. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You know I'm going to dig this. Yeah, he would do like slow and then speed up really fast. I'm gonna dig this, and then mine the cat. And he was jumping into like sort of sound creation film, different patterns of things mixing, like you would hear with some of the mixing of music, but he was doing it live, and strong, and then the movement and his funkiness, Yeah, he was amazing. Talking about Eddie Izzard, when we were all there, I think the thing that was really intrigued me was, when I first met Eddie Izzard, he was like, he spoke posh, clever guy, chatty, and witty, and he did it in such a way it was like the dinner chat, like the way we were having conversations, and actually he was really nice to me and stuff. And yeah, eventually we were having every time lunch chats and stuff. But he would also he would also like let me know if I was.
Was he any good at chess?
Don't remember him playing chess. What I do remember was he was always around talking to people, hanging out hours and hours and hours. But then the weird thing is at night when everybody would leave, like especially Steve Rollins, for example, would always get there early in the morning. And Steve Rollins was like a worker, he'd be low key. He'd be in the back working on his plate, juggling and doing his tricks, and hours and hours and hours, always jolly, always friendly. And by the way, when I first arrived, he was one of the people that was the nicest to me, and he really genuinely felt that. Wow, what a good guy! Later he actually got me a 10-minute spot on Jongleurs, and completely wasn't protecting his patch. He was, really, really generous, and that's exactly what we needed. When we're like you're coming into a new scene, and it'd be so easy for people to make you feel awkward, and uncomfortable or insecure. And he was really, I've never forgotten that, and it's a really good thing to remember for performers. It's like, if you're the outsider, even street performing is the outsider, but it has its clique. It was not an easy thing to come into, and he was incredibly generous about all that. But jumping back to Eddie Izzard, you'd go there, like, you'd see him the day he'd do his act. He was doing official touring with Adam. Was it Adam? His partner. Shit. David? Adam? Gone blank. Ballin.
Rob Ballard?
Was it?
Is it Rob Ballard?
Yes, Rob. Thank you. Bam. And so they were doing a duo, official touring. And also one of the great acts. Also, like, I forgot to mention when I first went there, he was, they were doing sort of like Monty Python-esque sword fighting, chatting, getting people improvising, and really funny, really out there. No real skills. What I would have considered skills as a juggler. Of course, it was skills. It was theater skills. It was improv skills. It was actually the stuff that I really ultimately always wanted to do. I think juggling was just something I could be sure, tricks. But eventually, I always admired the physical comedians, the mimes, the theatrical, the actors, the stand-up. That was something else, because that was brain stuff, brain food, cerebral. And I relied a lot on my tricks, so I admired those kind of acts. But Eddie, at nighttime, 8, 9, he would be walking around and there'd be nobody there, but he had his long tweed coat. I remember that. And I just thought, I just thought, man, he's a bit strange. He's like, why is he walking around now? There's nobody here. And I'd bump into him and stuff, or I'd watch him from a distance and think, there he is. Wow. And then I started to realize that thing that he had, that none of us kind of were really aware of at that time. We all knew he was good, he was charming, and a smart guy. Was that he totally immersed himself in things, like on a spirit level, It wasn't just he would prepare the act and do it. He would just live it, be around it. And then every year he would go to Edinburgh and do different plays and stuff. So he was working. I remember him telling me that there was a stand-up meeting every Tuesday in Streatham. He said, if you want to come. And I just thought, oh, okay. I never bothered to come. But slowly he built up this stand-up writing skill, which was surprising, and then while he was doing that, this winter, where I was seeing him walking around, there was a gym there. You could also do yoga and stuff in Covent Garden. It's around like a sports center or something. And he was there working out, and like literally on a mission to get fit. Because when I first saw him, I thought he was a bit, as the American boy, all about health and everything. I saw some of these English guys, English people, and I thought, oh, they're a little bit sickly, the color on the skin, it's like that dirty British look, that was just my ignorance. But well, it's true. I mean, you guys didn't even have juice in those days. You'd go very hard to get 100% juice. Everything was like Ribena drink. Yeah,
you have pop.
Yeah. You had like the British breakfast, big, wet, soggy sausages and dripping in baked beans. Yeah, which I love now. God, give that to me any day now. I would die for English breakfast. But so this is like my first impression. I was the boy from Virginia Beach, Virginia, with my gold necklace, and it's funny. So anyway.
How did you go from there to being, one of the biggest stage festival performers on the circuit?
Yeah, really? I don't remember that.
You sold out.
I don't remember that, but that's what I told you. Don't believe me, man. No, well, I think we should do that on the next interview, Matt.
We can do another interview, definitely. I'd be more than happy.
How much
to do
time? What's our time now? By the way, I have no idea where we're at.
We've been on for an hour and 50 minutes.
15.
An hour and 50. So 10
Really?
minutes, 2 hours. Yeah.
Bloody hell, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Sorry, have I waffled?
No, you're fine. Like the average episode is well over 2.5 hours, so it's fine. Rumpold on an episode I did last week did 5 hours 59 minutes. He did so long that that Facebook actually broke. It stopped being able to record on the live service after 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'd rather do half now then. If what is our allotted time? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me. You can talk for as long as you like to, mate. I'm
I would rather like save up the other thing because there's a lot more I'd like to talk about, and I'd like to do it. I mean, to be honest with you, I was a little bit down today, so I tried to I kind of pick myself up a bit. Yesterday, I was really up for it. I don't know.
I thought you did great. Well, I think you did.
I'm just.
Let it happen.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. You're good, bro. You're good. I'm sorry. I think I sometimes I waffle and I go on too much, and maybe I need to be a better listener. And
not today. You've done fine. There's been lots of people listening and enjoying throughout the entire program.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, I haven't actually watched anybody on this either. I'm believe it or not, I'm really shit with this kind of stuff. I think I have a little bit of informational disorder where I actually can't function very well. Like to find something to schedule something, it's getting worse. I live through my phone. I don't have a laptop. I have an iPad. I don't know where it is, and I've been living 10 years like this. I don't have a house. I was married with my daughter. I wasn't married with my daughter. Sorry, I was married with my ex-wife, and a daughter is now in Panama, by the way. And I think
at the festival, she performed at the festival, though. She's at the festival. There's loads of performers that are trapped in Panama at the moment from the tribal festival. Yeah, loads.
She filmed that festival. Did you see her autobiography? Did you see her street documentary?
I did see a documentary, and if you want to, I can share it inside this chat after the video's over. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Because
a little documentary.
She did a really. I really admired her a lot for that, and it was her choice. I didn't like. She was doing a university, and she picked street performing, and and then she did her own thing. And by the way, I'm not in it because at the time she didn't think it'd be very cool to have her dad in the documentary, and I agreed with her on that. Being a kind of known to be a slightly self-centered, egotistical bastard that I am, I thought, all right. But to be honest, inside me, I was a little bit, it's also my story, but okay, it's cool. I think Matt actually fulfilled the role nicely, and then she interviewed Eddie Izzard as well, and she had Brian is there and Richard Hanley. But I was really really touched by that, And I think that I'm really glad you're doing this because I think, shit, man, this story has to be told. It has to be out there.
I agree. And I think sorry, carry on.
Go on.
I think that it's just at a time where we are losing lots of people for various different reasons. I think the idea of getting a story that at the moment isn't progressing told on the internet is really important.
Yeah,
street story is not progressing now. At least we can do is just keep the memories alive of what it was.
Why isn't it progressing?
Well, because we're all in quarantine.
Oh, but besides that, why isn't it progressing? Do you think it was progressing before? Do you think
I'll tell you two things. I'll tell you what I think personally, and I'll tell you what has become apparent, at least through chatting to people, the broad opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that as a community, we've been focused on craft rather than art for far too long. And it's meant that we've crafted excellent shows that are powerful shows, but we've actually ignored and undermined creative practice in our work as a collective community, just by the culture we have. Talk to people over the interviews, hearing people talk from back then to now. What it appears is that people were coming to something that was quite new and fresh and vibrant. And there wasn't much of the setup thing behind. There was some, but there was a lot less. So people did start forming the idea of doing this to make this happen, doing that to make that happen. Other people see it gets integrated. And over time, this model gets refined through multiple people's shows, through passing of multiple people's hands. And because everyone's friends and it's new, people are sharing and developing together. What comes out of that is, instead of multitudes of working shows, one refined form that you slot bits into. And that could very well be the death of our form as an art, because it becomes then easy, repeatable. You don't have to sit and think about what you want to say ever at all in any way.
It's basically become a commercial formatted thing that you reduce the risk, and thereby you can survive with it, because it's quite a hard way to make a living. It's quite a lot hard on the nervous system. So you eventually reduce the risk and put in things that are sure, and then you've got that perfectly formatted show that can hit most of the time. It's less risk. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think even further than that, I'd say that for younger people beginning now, because this is going to horrify you possibly. I was born in 1984.
Eh?
So I was born in 1984.
Fuck.
So yeah,
that was the year I did my show in Colorado.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm very much of a different era, so to speak. And when I was beginning, all people talked about was money, and it was about making a show work. And there was next to no chat about creative practice, about something being interesting because it's artistic. I never even got the impression that was something that could be encased in this. That was only till later I met people like the chap you mentioned earlier on, Brian Reed, who started getting the idea that, no, you write material. This is an art form. You're being a fucking hack if you just picking things up and just using them. You're not a artist, you're a busker. And I kind of got what he said. Art involves some kind of communication, some kind of content.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. I totally agree. And I would go further in that I mean, maybe street performers, we might say, are, because I don't want to make generalizations, but let me talk about me in this case, but probably there's a laziness about the work sometimes. And once you figure out an act, there's also, besides that, you want to use the act that is going to work the best, but there's also a laziness to keep creating, keep inventing. I mean, that was before.
You mentioned over and over again in the interview about fear. And I just, whenever I hear about that, I do think about the fear of doing something creative in the show is the fear of feeling it not work. And it's the fear of you having to think, well, this isn't going to happen. And it's better almost as an idea before you do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, fear is everything. From the first time that we were born, coming out of the safe womb, and we're in just outside lights and stuff, and temperature and crying, and that never goes away. As a child, also the first smile when you feel comfy and you see your mommy and daddy, and then from the tears to the smile, it's not a big leap, as Joni Mitchell once said. It's all the same thing. That's why in a way you got the two masks of Greek. You got the tragedy and the comedy. It's like that line between comedy and tragedy. It's so close. So it's always about fear. And when I was talking to you about when I had to become blind, or just 2 days ago, I told you when I had to get the trolley with my bicycle. I had to take the shopping trolley and attach it to my bike because I bought too much food in the supermarket, and I didn't want to pay money for a taxi. And I couldn't get a taxi, so I just just did that. That was a very street performing moment, living by the seat of my pants, and then you get excited. Same thing when you lose your keys, and you have to climb up, and those moments where you have to like overcome something that's really scary, and then I guess now I'm arriving at that point personally, that having done quite a bit and having had the money part, the success part, or whatever that means, it just didn't really. I think honestly, as much as I still want to work, I still want to do shows, you still want to feel like you have value and stuff, but I'm caring less and less, honestly. I want to get to the thing that I thought I wanted to get to. Rather, I'm not scared to do poetry now. I'm not scared to be emotional. Yes, I want the funny, but I also want I want to get to something else that I was too afraid to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe as you get older. I don't know what happens as you get older. What happens when you get older? 65, 70? My mom always said...
It's about perspective from this position, isn't it,
Yeah. I just don't like... what was that Beatles song? Will they still need you when I'm 64? Dum, dum, dum. And that's kind of a jolly thing, but it is a bit like that. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I feel right now I've got like one cycle left. Like properly 7 years. Every 7 years our cells divide and grow. So all our dead cells have died, and we have new cells. And then that magic number 7. Like in music, you have the scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, ti, la, do, and then you get to the next octave. It's the next 7 years, and like generally our life is in 7-year cycles, they say, which kind of matches up. And so I'm coming into my probably proper performing. I got one more cycle. That takes about 65, 66. Of course, it's going to slow down pretty quickly. I have already slowed down. And if I can keep my mind from going properly crazy, and dementia setting in, and I'm seeing elements of that now. I'm not. Sometimes I'm not like. I used to have a better sense when I was losing it, and now I'm like embracing losing, like it's okay. That's right. And I catch myself like the other part of me jumps out and says, pull it back out there. Pull it back a bit, Morocco. Pull back. Pull back. Whoa. You've gone too far. As my daughter Rosie used to say, Dad, the joke went too far. Yeah, this last thing about the last cycle, I kind of like, at the moment, besides, I still have all these plans and dreams to work on a new show all my life, the new poem, the new album, the new musical. Sometimes I'm just grateful to still be performing, of course. But it's by now I should have got this bloody performing bug out of me. By now I should have settled down. I really wouldn't have predicted this. Of course I made some bad decisions. I got lost. Went from England to Spain, and I broke up with Sandy and Rosie, and that caused them a lot of pain. And admittedly, I made some bad decisions. And I think what I really want to say, besides talking about my second half, third half part of the career, is
you're gonna save that for the next interview, yeah,
because I want to be fresh too, and I feel like I'd like to be in another mood, because I'm slightly in a grayer, darker mood today, even though I might not seem it. But I don't want to force out more. It's almost like it's too good to do that. But what I want to say, that at the moment I'm going through a little bit of a transformation, whereby the fact was I I got stuck in America and I didn't have any backup financially. I've been living pretty much like a bohemian. I stay in sometimes hotels, sometimes Airbnb, sometimes with friends. Wasn't a big issue for me. I had a show next week or a show in 2 weeks. If I ran out of money, I had the show. Made sure, try to be a good dad as best as I can, try to be a better person. But honestly, I feel like I kind of got lost a bit too much. But now it's all about the people. It's all about connecting with all our friends, family and all that. And it sounds a bit cliche, but that is the most important thing. And it took me a long time to understand. I was just on such a constant mission to perform or to be better. And you just get lost with this stuff, and it's useless at some point, and if you think, and you're about to check out and you're about to go into the spirit land, do those accomplishments really matter? Will the certainly like at the house, the consumer things that you have certainly don't matter, but all the other stuff, will it really matter, or will it be those personal relationships, those emotional connections, having done something?
Do you not think about legacy?
Of course, you want to feel like what you did was meaningful, and you did something, and you brought something, and you had your story. Of course, yeah. But I mean, I think the idea of legacy is I want to finish things before I check out. I want to finish book of poems. I want to finish an album. I want to fucking do this solo poetic clown show I've been in my head 15 years, 20. I want to do these other things. I think now I'm quite concerned about finishing things, and not just being a bunch of disordered, random stuff that I've been writing and thinking and lots and lots and lots, but it doesn't seem to get ordered. And it's that thing, that disciplined work, that the people that seem to have the finished product, if you will, or the finished show, they just get their head down to it and they do it, and it sounds easy sometimes. So it seems harder to have these crazy creative impulses and ideas and things, right? That seems like that are different, that are real, that mean something. But in fact, it seems like unless you get this sense of process, I think a lot of artists don't have that practical process, maybe you're really good at practical process, and you have a mathematical thing where you can take these ideas and then put them in order and they become a rational thing. And now you have a number. Now you have a series of numbers and you have transitions and you have the whole thing. And now you've got that show, and then maybe after a while it starts to loosen up and gets better, whatever. But what I think is there's so many people with some beautiful madness, with really creative stuff, but you never get to really see them performing. They never get to that level that you see all these television comedians or whatever, because they didn't get the shit together.
It's different game, isn't it? That's what I feel sometimes looking at it. Is part of the game is the show, and part of the game is the stuff that sits around the show. And I think who make it, they are good at that stuff. You have to be good at that stuff to some extent.
Yeah, and by the way, I said getting the shit together. I don't mean that. I mean to say that because I don't really see it like that.
But I understand what you mean. They didn't manage to lock into the economic side of what we do.
Yeah, but I will argue equally and quite strongly that it's not about becoming a commercial success and all that, because I just think you can figure the whole commercial success. You can get your TV spots, you can get your theater shows and all that, and you supposedly, wow, you've done well. But, the depth of what street performers do, and they choose not to do that. They choose this other alternative. I think that's totally right and totally equal. And I would, and maybe it doesn't hold up in our economic model of our modern society. Maybe we don't really.
I was talking to Bill Ferguson the other day before we were going on live, and I was talking about something I expected. I've always thought it's a sad thing, the fact that once you finish a street show, there's no artifice after it. There's nothing that lives after it. There's no legacy from that street show, bar the memories of the people who watched. But Bill was saying that was the thing he enjoyed about it, is you have to be locked in that moment. You have to live in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't
Yeah.
get the leg. You don't have anything after that.
Well, there you go. And that's history. History teaches us a lot. Like, we find out later that Columbus was not such a good guy. We find out later Thomas Jefferson slept with a slave. We find out John F. Kennedy used to go out with prostitutes all the time. We find out that maybe Jesus, maybe he wasn't so purist. He did some amazing things. Maybe, uh, maybe these people that we absolutely admired, they had to compromise a lot to get to that power, and then they did good with their power. But who are these historians who then write about them? They interpret it in subjectivity, and so
It's this idea that the whole of our history is mythologized.
Well, just trying to say, like, when you say about legacy, for example, it's the people that take care. Also, I mean, some people are just genius and they're great, and people will remember them, and they did nothing to try to promote themselves, and then others will be taking care of their self promotion. And I'm sort of halfway. I'm halfway thinking about it. Halfway I don't give a shit. Halfway I care. Halfway I find it very superficial and all that. And yet the people that will take care are maybe because of what they've done and their real creative, remarkable talents and the way they think and the way they are. They lived it, the living art. Maybe that will then. But so. Talking about the street, there aren't a lot of videos now. There aren't a lot of people taking care of that legacy, and yet only a small amount of us will talk about those people that we admired, that opened the door, that broke new ground, that lived like that. I mean, if you think about it, the street performer, I mean, we've all read the stories, the troubadours back in the medieval days. Go back to the Greek theater, amphitheater. Go back to the jester. The king consulted with the jester because their antennas were up and they knew a lot about human behavior and they could be trusted in a way. I mean, clown performers, artists.
There's an honesty to the fool.
Of course. And
if you're being an idiot.
Go on.
No, I said he'd say if you were being an idiot. You could do the honesty of the fool because he'd say if you were being an idiot. The fool can.
Well, it's also. It's also intelligent, isn't it? It's emotionally intelligent to be the fool, to be on the peripheral, and not to be like that's that misfit thing, not to be part of the system, but to be observing the system, and then coming back and offering it as a and then offering what you see to. Looking at the human follies and fragilities and the human stupidity. We need someone to tell us that this is silly and this is stupid and to laugh in the mirror. Yeah. It's a noble thing to do with your life, isn't it? And it's not always easy. So. It's not easy though. It's not easy. The line is very thin with that edges where you slip and you fall and you really fall. And we're balancing this kind of sanity and insanity. So if you need that sanity enough to be professional, to stable, to survive, get your taxes paid, like what happens to you when you die, right? Oh, but didn't we all deal with this death thing a long time ago? Didn't we all decide at some point when you become a performer that you just throw the insurance out the window, ready? That song, that quote, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Chris Christopherson, I used to love that line. And it's like, if you don't have anything to lose, then you're free. But then you can be so free that you've got no stability. You've got, you're valued less. You become like a street urchin, and it shows up sometimes in your life, like it did with me. I have had 3 different times, and I've been in jail 3 times, right? And quite unusual situations. One time was didn't have insurance, and I was driving my car in England, Very funny situation. Well, another time I had an emergency passport in Paris going to a gig, and they don't accept 1 year emergency passport. So I was in a French jail, and they stripped me down, took everything, gave me a bag full of food, and treated me like a criminal stuck in a Swiss airport. Same reason, I was inside. Going back to England, I was always in the other because I didn't have a British passport. Same story. And each time, man, it's funny, but every time I was in that situation, I had this depression, feeling like all this big philosophy of what I believed in, this life. But in that moment, you felt like a lower status. You were like these refugees or immigrants that had no value and had no power. And that's hard. It's like, yeah, I wanted to be free, and I wanted to be this traveling performer, and I wanted to do all that. But now look at me. And then slowly, from being in that situation, always a few ping-pong tricks, a guitar. I was in the Paris prison, and this woman was barking French at me. She said, I said, sorry. I said, no. Yeah. And I was there, and I was like a Charlie Chaplin movie, had powdered milk, and they were sitting there like this and barking at you. And even I had to go out in the garden because they took your lighter, and they had a metal thing on the wall. You pressed it, and you put your cigarette, and it lit your cigarette. Incredible, man. And it was you couldn't lock your door from outside, and there was just and I was missing the gig because stuck there. I had to fly back to Wales. I lost about £1,500. But at the end, because we were literally arriving in Paris, we got this gig in France. It was a guitar festival. Can't remember the name now. And so it was quite cool. Guitar festival, show thing. And then the guy looked at my passport, sent me back to the office. And then he said to me, "No, we don't accept this. You are not going to go." I said, "What?" And then, "No, I'm sorry." And so I'm like calling the client, saying, "Sorry." The guys ended up doing the show as a duo, but I was gutted, And then they treated me, and I kept trying to say to them, in my French, look, I'm an artist. Look on the internet, I thought, oh, if they see I did some things, they would treat me differently. They didn't give a shit.
French would go like, "Oh, you're an artist. There we go. Sorry, this guy's an artist."
Yeah,
everybody.
And I did things like I hate, I said, "No, I'm on television. Look, I'm bien connu. I'm really well known." And I just pulled out everything, and they didn't give a shit, and it wasn't going to happen. And so then I was like, my status went down and down and down and down, and then I'm like, I'm absolutely like brewing with anger and resentment, Okay, this is a classical technical thing. Why did you go there with a passport with emergency? I didn't know France didn't accept an emergency passport. I got an emergency passport because I couldn't wait long enough when I was traveling and Okay, all this shit. But there you are, technical glitch. But it becomes personal, emotional. It becomes like your status is taken away, and you for a moment you really understand what it is to be poor, to be a refugee, to have nothing, and how people treat you. And this is after a while. You don't forget these moments, and you think you would never want another human being to be treated so indignified. So at the very end, the next day, they called me up. They said, "Okay, you can come today." And this was after trying to explain, waiting, hours and hours, having nothing. Next day, get there, and they say, fill out the form. You fill out the form, and they said, "Okay, you can take your things." And the police are there joking with each other. So I got up, and I'm like, really raw. I'm emotionally raw. And I didn't sleep hardly well at all. And I look rough. I'm coming out of jail. And so I got my guitar and I said, "No, they're gonna know who I am, right? I'm not leaving here like this." And so I said, I got my guitar out, and I made up a blues in French, And they were like, "Oh, c'est bon, pas mal, it's not bad, huh?" But but they didn't know when I was singing it. I was really raw, man. I was singing it like someone that had gone through a trauma. I was really in it, you know. But somehow when I finished singing that blues, I was like, that's it. Got my dignity back, you know. And that's the stuff that people don't know, and they just think that you're a performer, that it's all glory, and you know, you don't see how sometimes it's just fucking hard. It's hard, you know.
Yeah.
And okay, right now, of course, with us not being able to perform, it's hard. But like, how do we stay sane? You know, that's the thing.
Well, there's a punctuation. This is what I felt immediately. I think in the first couple of weeks was there was a punctuation which was missing from your life. Do you know what I mean? Something which gave your life a rhythm. Be it you perform once a week, 3 times a week, once a month, but you know that at that time you go, you do that thing. That's that rhythm you have for that.
Yeah.
It's just gone. You know, I mean, I perform once every week, twice every week, and as soon as it stopped, I was just thinking, what fucking day is it? You know, what day is it? How do I orientate myself around time? You know, it's very easy to lose your grasp of.
So what do you do to make sure that you get some rhythm each day?
This is the rhythm I'm really getting. 3 days a week, I'm interviewing people, chatting with people, and that gives me a sense of rhythm during the week. You know, I'm trying to start up some creative projects with people at the moment. Hopefully it's not, the problem is it's quite chaotic at the moment. You know, how the fuck do you fucking develop something for writing on this medium between people? Just off the blue, it's difficult, but you know, hopefully that'll become a same thing. You can develop a rhythm into that once a week. You have a day, you do that. Maybe I'm disorganized, just like you, chaotic character. You know, the interviews are even just, you know, I'm barely holding together doing them at the moment. You know, making sure they keep functioning and working, and we one every 3 times a week. But training a little bit. The thought that this will end, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's I mean, I think I've gone from I was in Lanzarote, went to Berlin, went to Frankfurt, went to Tennessee, Dollywood. Because I have I also have another group, and they were doing, because I was going to do Chicago. First, I was going to go to Seattle Moisture Festival. It's a very cool festival, by the way. It's an old street performers juggling variety. Tim, guy from Flying Karamata Brothers, was a very famous juggling group in America a long time ago. Air Jazz was there. A lot of people from Hawaii. Did you know about you got the Hawaii connection? Are you familiar with that?
No, but I'm slowly. Well, I saw a disproportionately large amount of people who are my friends in festivals going back to Hawaii, living in Hawaii, and I was like,
yeah, well, Eileen has spent a lot of time there. Hello, Eileen. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people didn't. I was talking to Steve Rollins the other day, and he said no, he'd never done that. I don't think Chris Liner has gone there. I gotta see. I don't even know who's on your group, by the way. So I didn't even look. I have no idea. Who's even listening right now? I gotta think people have a life, right?
We get lots of different. It's hard to tell how many people exactly are watching. It's quite reliable. We've had maybe 10 people watching during, but each of the videos is getting about 600-700.
Oh, that's cool.
Watching them by the end.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I don't even. I thought 20, 30.
No. Well, it's debatable how long people watch for.
Yeah.
You know, you've got like the biggest one at the moment is Nick. He's got over 1,000 people watched him. But how many people watched the entire video?
Nicholas.
The minute view.
Nicholas.
Yeah. He's got the number one ranked video in terms of views.
I can tell you a lot about Nick. Gosh, we had a good time. Covent Garden, New Orleans. That year I was there. He was definitely a strong character there. He was he had that kind of that Cockney kick. Nick. I can see his smiling face. Yeah, we were hanging out a lot. It was raw. I had a guy that I don't know if he or someone else used to call my dirty rag. He was passing the hat. he kind of offered, and he was kind of annoying a lot of people. So I think eventually it didn't work. But I was hanging out with Nick back in those days. Jasper. Yeah, Jasper. Maybe Nick will remember him. Jasper was the yeah. He's like Jasper, mate. He was looked a little bit like Mick Jagger, right? And he was young, and he was looking up to all the new performers, and he said he told me he had a place to stay the first day I arrived in Covent Garden, and then I didn't have anywhere to stay. I said, "Oh, okay." And so in those days they had the really heavy coins, so I had a bag full of really heavy English coins, pounds and all that. It was a good day. I did 2 shows or something. And so it was really late. And so he said, yeah, mate, you can stay at my place. I said, oh, okay, thanks a lot, man. Yeah. And so then I followed him that night. I had no idea where it was. It was in Hackney. We got on the train. We waited for the bus. Got on the bus. We waited on the train. And the bag was really heavy. And he kept saying, sorry, mate, it's just it's not too much farther. And it was like 2.5 hours or something. It was the first day I arrived in England. I was jet lagged. I'd done shows. I had a heavy bag. I was dying. And this is like total culture shock. But he was being really nice. So we finally get there, and he says, okay, mate, just a little bit further. This was going on and on. We get there again, get to the thing. He said, okay, mate, it's just around the corner. Okay, yeah. And then we get there, and he goes, okay, mate, we're just going to go up the steps. It's like over there, just down. Oh, fuck. He said, yeah. Oh, he said, okay, man. I said, really, is it close? He said, yeah, mate, don't worry. And then we get there, and it's go up a couple steps. It's a Hackney, kind of a council flat. He's squatting it. And then he said, he looked at me and said, well, it's not much, but it's home. And he opened the door, and it was like full of rubbish, nothing, floor, just a floor. And I just thought, fuck, this is England, okay. I was like, it was like little American boy.
It's like what Dickens, it's just like Dickens.
Yeah, and I was and literally it was like trash on the floor, and I just thought I was so tired. And I think I used my coat and wrapped up and slept. And it was hardcore, man. That Hackney wasn't really, as nice in those days. It was rough, depressing. But anyway, that was my first day. But
lots of free accommodation, though.
Yeah. No, and he was really nice. You wouldn't have. That was like the thing about he came to England. Everybody was really, really nice. And I learned a lot from how social people were and. At least there was a community of artists, there's people like a tribe. And
so it's this day, if people are ill or sick there, people put money in, we take money out of the collective fund we have now to support people. It's still tight in terms of we hold each other up as a community, and I really think that's laudable, People say it's the closest pitch in the world to this day, and I can believe that working on it and working on a few other places. That's the biggest community, the nicest place, most open place,
Well, I think after all of this thing, I'm definitely gonna. I go back there quite a bit and tell other people stuff, but I haven't been really. I've not really reached out as much, except for individuals. We stay in touch and stuff, but I haven't really. I don't think I've given enough back, or that's right to give enough back, or just stay connected enough, So it's something as you get older, it's a treasure, man. This whole thing is a treasure. Yeah. So, dude, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna finish with a song. Is that all right?
That's perfect, mate. So, everybody. I'd just like to say before we begin, thank you for watching Whining On. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Paul, we're going to have you back in the next couple of weeks, yeah?
Yeah, man.
So we'll be back in the next couple of weeks to talk about the second half of this coming up. For now, please enjoy the song.
So this one is called Fuck. Good comedy out there. This is this headphone, man. These things. All right, let me see if I get this right. It's called One Day.